With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Okay, so today we're going to dive into cybersecurity.
Okay.
And helping us navigate this complex world, we have Iosu Arrizabalaga. He's the CEO of Factum.
Okay.
And Factum is a really fascinating company because they've been around since 2009.
Wow.
So they were around even before people were really talking about cybersecurity as a term.
Right.
It was more like information security or IT security back then.
I see.
But they've really been there from the beginning and seen this whole landscape evolve.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is now they're part of the Santander group.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to be drawing on a radio interview with Iosu to really kind of get his insights on how things have changed.
Interesting.
And what the particular challenges are for businesses today. Especially, we're going to focus on medium-sized businesses because that's where Factum is really focusing their efforts right now.
I see.
And we'll talk about why that is. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I was listening to this interview with Iosu was just how much the threat landscape has changed even just since 2009.
Yeah. In what way?
Well, he talks about how in the early days of Factum, a lot of their work was really specialized. It was about helping companies with the specific technologies.
Okay.
But what's happened is that cybercrime itself has undergone this really fundamental shift.
Okay.
It used to be, there were these sort of like lone wolf hackers
Right.
who were kind of doing it for the challenge or the bragging rights, just to prove that they could. But now it's almost entirely about financial gain.
Right.
And that has completely changed the way that cyber criminals operate.
Right, because now it's like a business for them.
Exactly. It's like a business.
Yeah.
They're organized.
Yeah.
They have these sophisticated tools. They're targeting specific companies.
Right.
And they're really good at what they do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Badly.
And so that means that companies need to really up their game in terms of their defenses.
Yeah, so you're saying companies now need to think of security almost as an investment.
Exactly, an investment and not just like a cost.
Right.
Yeah, because if you don't invest in cybersecurity, you're basically leaving yourself wide open to attack.
Yeah.
And the consequences of that can be devastating.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen companies go out of business after a cyber attack.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually one of the things that Santander was really concerned about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they saw that a lot of their clients were these medium-sized businesses. And these businesses were particularly vulnerable to attack.
I think.
Because they often don't have the same resources as larger companies to invest in cybersecurity.
Right.
And so Santander realized that if they wanted to protect their own business, they needed to help protect their clients as well.
Right.
And so that's actually how they ended up acquiring Factum.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost a defensive move for them?
Yeah. I mean, it was a strategic move, but it was definitely motivated by the need to protect their clients. And, it makes sense because if one of Santander's clients goes out of business because of a cyber attack, that hurts Santander too.
Yeah, of course.
So it's in their best interest to make sure that their clients are as protected as possible.
I see. So it's about protecting the entire business ecosystem, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's all interconnected, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't really think about. They think that cybersecurity is just like an IT issue.
Right.
But it's really a business issue.
Yeah.
Because it can affect the bottom line. It can affect your reputation. It can affect your ability to operate. So it's something that everyone in the company needs to be aware of.
Right. Everyone from the CEO down to the interns.
Exactly. And, Iosu talks about how when Factum first started out, they had to do a lot of what he called evangelizing.
Yeah.
Because companies just weren't really aware of the risks.
Right.
They didn't understand why they needed to invest in cybersecurity. And so Factum had to go out there and explain to them why it was so important.
I see.
And what's amazing is that even today, in 2025, there are still companies that don't get it.
Really? After all this time?
I know. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it's true.
Wow.
They're still thinking of cybersecurity as a cost rather than an investment.
Yeah.
And they're still not taking it as seriously as they should be.
So what's the main reason for that, do you think?
Well, I think there are a few reasons.
Okay.
One is that cybersecurity can be really complex,
Mm-hmm.
and it's constantly changing.
Right.
So it can be really hard for companies to keep up with the latest threats and the best practices.
Mm-hmm.
And then another reason is that a lot of companies just don't have the resources to dedicate to cybersecurity.
Right.
They might not have a dedicated CISO,
Right.
which is a Chief Information Security Officer,
Yeah.
or they might not have a big IT team. So they're trying to do it all with a really small staff.
Yeah.
And then I think the third reason is that a lot of companies just don't think they're a target.
Right.
You know, they think, oh, we're just a small business. Why would anyone want to attack us?
Yeah, we're too small to be a target.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a dangerous assumption.
It is a dangerous assumption because, as we've seen, cyber criminals are now targeting everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you're a small business or a large corporation.
Right.
You're a potential target.
Yeah.
And so everyone needs to be taking cybersecurity seriously.
Okay, so if we focus on these medium-sized businesses then,
Yeah.
so they might not have the resources or they don't think they're a target.
Right.
But what are the actual threats that they're facing?
Yeah. So one of the biggest threats is human error.
Really?
Yeah. You know, people clicking on malicious links in emails,
Right.
or opening attachments that they shouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
or visiting websites that are infected with malware. You know, it's those kinds of simple mistakes that can open the door for an attacker.
Wow. So even with good technology in place, a simple click can just undo everything.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have good security awareness training for employees.
Right.
So that they understand the risks and how to avoid them.
Yeah.
But even with good training, there's always going to be that human element.
Right.
You know, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's also important to have good technology in place
Okay.
to help mitigate those risks.
So what kind of technology are we talking about here?
Well, one of the most important things is a firewall,
Right.
which is basically a barrier between your network and the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps to block any malicious traffic from coming in.
I see.
But you also need to have good antivirus software
Right.
to protect against malware.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have a good intrusion detection system,
Okay.
which can help to identify any suspicious activity on your network. And then on top of all that, you need to have a good incident response plan
Right.
so that if you do get attacked, you know what to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's important.
And you can recover quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot to keep track of.
It is.
Especially for these companies that don't have the big teams and the resources.
Right, and that's where Factum comes in.
Okay.
So they've developed this platform called Silum.
Salem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's basically designed to make cybersecurity easier for medium-sized businesses.
How so?
Well, it does a few things.
Okay.
First of all, it consolidates all of Factum's expertise into a single platform.
I see.
So instead of having to go out and buy a bunch of different security products,
Right.
you can just get Salem and it has everything you need.
Okay, that's convenient. So
Yeah.
it's like a one-stop shop for cybersecurity.
Exactly. And then the second thing it does is it provides ongoing support.
Okay.
So you have access to Factum's team of experts
Mm-hmm.
who can help you with everything from setting up your security to responding to incidents.
So it's not just technology, it's like a service as well.
Exactly. It's a service.
Okay.
And that's what makes it so valuable for medium-sized businesses.
Right, because they might not have the in-house expertise
Right.
to do all this themselves.
Exactly. And so Salem gives them access to that expertise
Mhm.
without having to hire a whole team of security professionals.
I see. So it's like having a CISO on demand.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
And then the third thing that Salem does is it helps companies to understand their risks.
Okay.
So it provides them with a clear picture of their security posture, and it identifies any areas where they're vulnerable,
Right.
and then it gives them recommendations on how to improve their security.
So it's like a personalized roadmap for cybersecurity.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, so Salem is a really valuable tool for medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And it's something that I think more companies should be looking into.
Yeah.
Especially given the increasing threat landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the things that Iosu talked about in the interview was the importance of data governance
Okay.
and how that's becoming increasingly important in the cybersecurity world.
Right.
And I think this is something that a lot of companies are still struggling with.
Yeah.
You know, they're not really sure what data governance is
Right.
or how to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically about having a clear understanding of what data you have,
Mm-hmm.
where it's stored,
Right.
who has access to it, and how it's being used.
Okay.
And then having policies and procedures in place
Right.
to make sure that that data is protected.
Right.
And this is becoming increasingly important because of all the regulations that are coming out.
Like what?
Well, there's GDPR,
Right.
which is the General Data Protection Regulation, and that came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
But now there's this new regulation called NIS2.
NIS2?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't heard that one.
It's the Network and Information Security Directive.
Okay.
And it's going to have a big impact on companies.
How's that?
Well, it basically requires companies to have certain security measures in place to protect their data. And if they don't, they can be fined.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a pretty big deal.
Wow.
And it's going to come into effect in 2025.
So companies need to start preparing now.
They do.
Yeah.
They need to start thinking about their data governance, and they need to start putting the right security measures in place.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot for companies to think about when it comes to cybersecurity.
There is.
Yeah.
But the good news is that there are resources available to help them.
Like what?
Well, like Factum and Silum.
Right.
But there are also a lot of other companies out there that offer cybersecurity services. And there's a lot of information available online.
Okay.
So there's no excuse for companies to not be taking cybersecurity seriously. And, I think one of the key takeaways from this whole conversation is that cybersecurity is not just an IT issue.
Right.
It's a business issue.
Yeah.
And it's something that everyone in the company needs to be aware of. And so if you're a business leader, you need to make sure that you're taking cybersecurity seriously.
Okay.
And you need to make sure that you're investing in the right resources to protect your company.
But think about cybersecurity as an investment, not a cost.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that with the rise of AI and all this automation, cybersecurity is becoming even more complex.
Right.
And so I think in the future, we're going to see even more of a need for expert help.
Yeah, because it's moving so fast.
Exactly.
It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, and so I think companies like Factum that have that expertise are going to be even more valuable.
Yeah, because they can help companies to navigate this complex landscape.
Exactly. And so I think the real question for all of us to think about is how can we create a culture of cybersecurity within our organizations?
Right.
Where everyone understands the risks and everyone is taking responsibility for protecting our data.
That's a great point.
Because ultimately cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
The lottery is not about getting rich. It's about helping people, and it always has been. The lottery is what helped raise the Great Wall of China, build the roads of Rome, and today in South Carolina, it's what generates millions of dollars each year for scholarships like the SC Hope, Life, and Palmetto Fellows. The South Carolina Education Lottery is investing in you. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou to learn more.